Hey there, everybody. It's getting towards the end of September, and a lot of the nurseries in the area are having plant sales and end of the season clearance and deals and all sorts of things. And I am a sucker for a plant sale. So, uh, in going to pick up some supplies from the nearby local hardware store, they are right next to one of my favorite nurseries in the area. And I stopped by and grabbed just 4 plants. Not a big deal, not a huge purchase, although we are getting to the point where catalogs for next season are showing up. So we'll go over some of the things that we're ordering in and what I'm excited about a little later once I finalize those. But I figured I'd show you some of the things that I look for when I am shopping at the end of season, to kind of maximize my return on investment. So let's take a look at some plants. Look at these leggy boys. So this is the Samel variety of Sambucus canadensis elderberry, and you can see these are about a 1.5 gallon pot. I don't think those are a 3 gallon pot. They don't look like mine. Might be a 2.5, but they look a little small. I think those look more like a 3 gallon, closer to a 5, so maybe. But so, these were tucked away on a pallet in a shadier spot in the nursery, and you can see that they were packed in because they put a ton of foliage out on the top and out on the sides, but nothing up the main stems. But every single segment of this, when it senesces in the fall, can be taken as a cutting. And so while I have the main root ball there, I can go pretty hard and get maybe 20 to 30 cuttings per plant, which means that for short money at a 50% off end of season sale, I can get maybe 40 to 60-ish plants out of that one purchase. Obviously, I could choose to leave them as is, but my first indication is that I am interested in seeing how they grow in ground without such intense light competition. The other thing is that I had to very deeply water these just so there would be enough weight in the pots to keep them from blowing over for this video. So they spent a good hour in the soak tank, I think, before this was filmed. And the other 2 plants that I picked up the other day are this shadblow serviceberry, and is Emilank here canadensis, and it is a suckering shrub, which is why I looked for the ones that had a lot of these young shoots coming out. If I come over to this one, you can see this is very deeply potted. I'm not entirely crazy about it, but this is just what happens at nurseries. So Durr's Manual of Plant Propagation says that there are no reports of root cuttings being terribly viable on this plant. They mentioned that there is only one report and it showed no successes from a root cutting itself, but there's no indication as to whether it was like a rooted shoot or if it was just actual basal root cuttings, like you might do with a comfrey or another plant like that. Currants and some other suckering shrubs would also likely be the same kind of deal. So we'll have a little video once we get closer to planting these. I'd like to let them senesce a bit further. These guys are still kind of doing their thing. So we'll leave them kind of close to where we're thinking of putting them, although a good number of these may go into some of the wood line as we're making progress back there. So we'll let these kind of go to sleep for the season. I certainly don't want to do anything too crazy. You might be able to see some of the buds here on this that are looking like pre-seasonal growth for next year. So we'll see as the days are getting considerably colder after that last cold front moved through. We'll see how these guys adapt to the new site, and we'll keep an eye on them. These mark the third variety of Emilank here that we have on site. Canadensis here, but back that way we have Emilank here laevis and Emilank here Almond Folia. Some of the other things are finally popping back, so I have a little bit more color in the garden again. You can see a few more of these sedums. A lot of our pots got way too stressed during this growing season, and so we had some losses, but it's just soil we can reuse. So let's take a little look. I promised you guys an update on the other side of that trail head, so we'll take a little mosey back there real quick, do a brief update, and then I'm actually not speaking, obviously, but I am attending the set of webinars this weekend that Verge Permaculture is putting on, specifically related to cold climate permaculture and food forestry, agroforestry, and urban permaculture design. And so if you guys aren't aware of it, a lot of you are probably signed up for the Edible Acres channel as well, and so you may have seen Sean's update that he's going to be speaking this afternoon. But so I'd like to get this moving so that I can take care of the last couple of things before I sit down to spend even more time in front of a computer screen. So you can see the main tractor path up there. Over just beyond that flat portion is the bits where we've been clearing and dropping the invasive bittersweet. We have another trail that I am hoping to better define over here, and then right in here we have another clearing which I've started building up a small brush wall, and similar to the beds that I'm going to pan to in a moment, I get into place here. So for context, on the shadier side of the hill is where we have those other garden beds. You can kind of see one, and then that bottom bit. And if I come over here, it might be a little bit easier to see. So you can see our brush wall berms, our beaver dam berms over there. I said that I was going to be trying something a little bit different on this side. And so what we have here are some of the remaining brush from some of the bits that I've cut, and a whole lot of downed curly willow that has been sitting on this hillside for some time now. And it gets progressively lower as we get past this pine tree right there. And these two are kind of the pins for this brush wall. We'll come around to the bottom of it so that you can get kind of a look and a feel for it. And so at the moment we have some full span brush and tree, and then we also have things woven through. You can see the crisscrossing nature, how it goes in front of one, behind another, links through, and a lot of these are either driven diagonally or a little bit heading back up the hill to create that platform and terrace effect. The hill does get very, very steep where we are standing, but this got set up just before those heavy rains over the past couple of days, and I see very little evidence that there was a huge amount of movement. There are some traces at the very base here where you can see the grasses laid down, but I'm unsure how much of that was me doing the work in here and how much of that was the rain itself. We didn't have much travel in these other bits of exposed leaves, so I've also started moving in some of the fill dirt from the back corner of the property. Not the back, not the west corner, but at the top of the tractor path leading up. It's over there somewhere, and there's light on the other side of it now. We can actually see over and past it, so I know that we're making good progress on it. My goal for this, eventually, I'd like to continue leveling out this pat here so that we can place some shrubs, like a short-ish shrub, in where the beech leaves are. We have some really nice stones that I'm going to place up in here to accentuate this one that is in the hillside, and we'll make something nice out of that. There are a number of stones, some that I'm using going forward to be markers for plants, and we'll do a little update once I have enough of them to make a show of it, but it takes some effort and time. And so I'd like to have kind of a sitting area almost, or a place where you could sit and talk, or potentially even have a number of seats in here so that as the design moves forward, we can use the stairs as seating, perhaps another shelf layer here that is actually, kind of like a bench seat almost. We'll see how it goes. But then an area in here that is open and has a natural lift to it, so that if we do have groups coming through, there is a common staging area where we can either introduce the structure of the forest and gardens in it, rules if we get to that point, things to look for, ways to navigate, or just something that I am asking people to pay attention to. And so as we move through this space, not just growing things and having vining crops up through this exposed brush, but also with an eye towards inviting people through and serving as a model for our neighbors and our neighbors' neighbors to consider doing something like this in their portions of the woodlot, so that there is just greater and greater abundance for the wildlife that we all enjoy in the area, a way to create more food production closer to them to reduce their food miles, and a way to empower them to have a say in how they value the woods themselves. I think that there's a real value in having a respect for the canopied forest spaces of New England, and anywhere really, but just to be more specific to our context, there's a real value to appreciate, the full canopy of trees that we have and wish to keep them, but it's hard to believe that you can grow food under conditions like this. And so I think having a space or a way to perform additional educational services with live interactive examples is the way that I'm dreaming of this project coming to fruition soon. And soon is a relative term as far as geologic time goes. So that's where we're moving to. Possibly another brush wall, but I think I'd like to keep less of a physical structure and more of a natural structure to delineate between these two tiers of the hillside. And just one more thing that I'll call attention to is that I did remove 2 trees in this area to provide a morning sun and a morning shade context on the same sort of soil hillside on a same or similar gradient. And this is something that you may choose to do in your design. You may choose to just have more of a dappled shade, some sun, partial sun access across your whole hillside, but I'm interested to see how this experiment fleshes out. We'll always be able to come in and either thin the number of trees. I mean, some of these are not intended for long-term stay in the gardens, but we can see how this takes shape, and if we decide that we need a little bit of additional light, we can always play with some of the above head branches and thin them, or remove a tree for some pole wood or small firewood. So we'll keep this going. I hope you've all been well. We are looking forward to the end of season and a chance to work more on our project. And yeah, we'll keep updating, hopefully regularly, but there's a lot of end of season tasks, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with yourselves. So I appreciate your understanding as we do the things that don't necessarily make for a great watch. But until next time, thanks for watching. Happy planting.